She was just a waitress, 12 years old, worn-out shoes, serving food to people who never noticed her. Until one night, in the middle of a luxury restaurant in New York City, a billionaire suddenly stood up, pointed at her, and shouted, "Stop! Who is your mother?" The room froze. Glasses shattered, hearts raced, and from that moment, nothing would ever be the same again. What secret did this child unknowingly carry? Why did a powerful man, born into wealth and power, tremble at the sight of a simple birthmark on her wrist? And what deadly truth had been buried for over a decade by a family who would do anything to keep it hidden? This is a story about identity, betrayal, and the power of truth. It will break your heart, then put it back together. So don't blink, because the deeper you go, the darker the truth becomes. The Crown Pavilion, a five-star restaurant tucked in the heart of Manhattan, buzzed with laughter, clinking glasses, and the gentle rhythm of a string quartet. Waiters in crisp uniforms danced between tables with polished grace, but one figure among them stood out, not for her elegance, but for her fragility. 12-year-old Emily Carter moved carefully between the tables, balancing a silver tray twice her size. Her oversized sleeves covered thin arms, and her eyes, large, dark, and quiet, carried the weight of someone who had seen far more than a child should. She wasn't supposed to be there, not legally, but poverty never cared for paperwork. Orphans like Emily didn't get choices. Raised by Mrs. Grace Holloway, a retired seamstress in Brooklyn's poorest neighborhood, Emily had worked since she could walk. And now here she was, serving $500 steaks to men in suits who didn't know the price of bread. Her left wrist itched. That birthmark, a dark, coin-sized circle on the inside of her wrist, had always made her feel different. She learned to hide it since she was 5, after a classmate screamed and said she looked cursed. Since then, Emily kept it covered, always. Tonight would be the night that changed everything. At table 7, 3 sharply dressed men sat in deep conversation. Among them, Alexander Morgan, 25, billionaire, CEO of a rising tech empire, and heir to the powerful Morgan estate, stared blankly at the wine swirling in his glass. He didn't smile. Not when his friends laughed. Not even when the server poured him his favorite Chateau Margaux. He hadn't smiled since his mother, Margaret Morgan, died 12 years ago. A memory too heavy to carry, and yet tonight, something strange was about to stir it all up again. Emily approached table 7, her tray stacked with 3 plates of seared filet mignon and sides of gold-dusted asparagus. The tray wobbled. Her arms trembled. One wrong move and she'd lose this job. And Grace needed medicine. Sweat dripped from her brow. In one swift move, she reached to wipe it. With her left sleeve, it slid down. For the first time in years, the birthmark was exposed, and in a single heartbeat, the world stopped spinning. Alexander Morgan's glass slipped from his hand, shattering on the marble floor. Wine splashed across the white tablecloth like spilled blood. He shot up, his chair screeching backward. "Stop!" he shouted, voice slicing through the entire restaurant. Every conversation died, every eye turned. "Who is your mother?" Emily froze. She dropped the tray. Plates crashed onto the floor, hot soup splattering against her shins. She didn't cry from the pain. She was too busy trembling in confusion. "I don't know," she stammered, eyes wide in terror. Alexander stared at her wrist like it had spoken to him. "That mark," he whispered, stepping forward. "Where did you get it?" She tried to pull her sleeve down, but he reached for her arm, gripping her wrist with shaking hands. "That's impossible. That birthmark," his voice cracked. "That was my mother's." Emily yanked her hand back, bursting into tears. "I don't know anything. Please let me go." "Alex, what the hell are you doing?" one of his companions hissed. "She's just a kid." Alexander didn't blink. His voice trembled but was ice cold. "No, you don't understand. That mark, it's her mark. My mother had it. She told me it runs in our bloodline. She said only her child would bear it." Emily stumbled backward. The restaurant manager, red-faced and flustered, rushed over. "Emily, what the hell are you doing? Apologize to the guests. You're done here." Alexander raised his hand, stopping the man in his tracks. "She's not going anywhere," he said calmly. "I need to speak with her, privately." Minutes later, in a quiet corner near the back stairwell, Emily sat across from Alexander, arms wrapped tightly around herself. "I'm not here to scare you," he said, softer now. "But that birthmark, it means something. My mother had the same one, in the exact spot. She said it's been passed down for generations. When I was a kid, she told me if she ever had another child, they'd have it too." Emily looked down. "I was told I was found. At a market. I don't remember anything else." "Who told you that?" he asked. "Mrs. Grace Holloway. She raised me." Alexander's breath hitched. 12 years ago, his mother had vanished for 2 months, claiming she needed to get away for her health. His father never explained. She came back pale, thinner, and distant. Then weeks later, she died from a sudden illness. He remembered her final words. "If you ever see someone with the mark, Alex, protect them." He leaned in. "Emily, would you be willing to take me to the woman who raised you?" "Grace?" Emily hesitated. She didn't understand any of this, but something inside her, a whisper of longing, of hope, urged her to say yes. "Only if I don't lose my job," she said, barely audible. Alexander smiled gently for the first time that night. "Don't worry, you won't. I'll take care of that." As they left the Crown Pavilion together, the glittering lights of the restaurant faded into the dark night of Brooklyn's backstreets. A luxury black SUV swallowed them into its leather seats, the silence between them full of questions neither dared to ask yet. Emily clutched her wrist, where the birthmark still pulsed beneath her skin like a forgotten heartbeat. Alexander stared out the window, fists clenched. If what he feared was true, Emily wasn't just another orphan. She might be his sister, or worse. She might be the reason his mother died. Absolutely. Here's part 2 of the story, crafted in emotional, cinematic English, filled with suspense, hidden truths, and a slow build toward confrontation. The mystery deepens as Emily and Alex approach the past that's been buried for over a decade. The SUV rumbled softly through Brooklyn's narrow streets, leaving the elegance of Manhattan far behind. Streetlights flickered through the tinted windows, casting quicksilver shadows across Emily Carter's pale face. She sat quietly in the back seat, arms folded, still hugging her coat tightly. Her eyes never left the city slipping past the glass. Next to her, Alexander Morgan sat in silence, his jaw clenched, hands gripping the wheel tighter than necessary. He'd seen many strange things in his 25 years, but this wasn't business. This was personal, and it terrified him. The deeper they drove into South Side Alley, the more the world changed. Trash bins overflowed, windows were barred. The perfume of expensive cologne was replaced by the stench of mildew and grease. Emily pointed. "That's the place." Alex slowed the car. In the dim glow of a flickering streetlight stood a crumbling 2-story building. Paint peeled off the brick like old scabs. The porch sagged, but the porch light was on, warm, golden, and flickering, like it had been lit just for them. "Are you sure she's home?" Alex asked. "She's always home," Emily whispered. They stepped out. The cold bit harder here. Emily shivered but walked ahead. Alex followed, heart pounding for reasons he didn't understand. Emily knocked twice, paused, then knocked once more. A moment passed. Then the door creaked open. A hunched figure stood in the doorway, white hair pulled into a loose bun, shoulders wrapped in a knitted shawl. "Emily?" Mrs. Grace Holloway's voice was raspy, surprised. "Honey, what are you doing home so—" Her eyes shifted, saw Alex, and froze. The color drained from her face as she gripped the doorframe. "Who is this?" "He's a friend," Emily said quickly. "He just needs to ask you something. Please, Grace." Alex stepped forward, his voice calm but urgent. "I believe you were the one who found Emily when she was a baby," he said. 12 years ago, near a market?" The old woman's hands trembled. Yes. Why do you ask?" "Because I think she's my sister," Alex replied, his voice shaking for the first time. Grace gasped and almost collapsed. Emily caught her. They helped her into the living room, where the old woman lowered herself into a faded armchair. Alex sat across from her. Emily hovered, eyes darting between them. For a while, no one spoke. The silence was heavy, thick with the weight of buried secrets. Then Grace whispered, "What do you know?" "I know my mother had a birthmark, Identical to Emily's, Alex said. I know she vanished for a few months before she died, and I know she was terrified of something, or someone. Grace closed her eyes, letting the words soak in. I never meant to hide the truth. I was trying to protect her, she said softly. Alex leaned forward. Protect her from what? Grace looked at Emily with sorrow. You were left in a blanket, lying beside a woman. I thought she was sleeping, but she wasn't. She was already gone. She was young, pale, weak. She had the same mark on her wrist as you. Emily's lips parted. So, that woman was my mother? I believe so, Grace said. I buried her myself. I didn't know her name. I found no ID, just a silver necklace around her neck. It had the name Margaret engraved on it. Alex's chest tightened. My mother's name was Margaret, he said quietly. Margaret Morgan. Tears filled Grace's eyes. Then yes, I found your mother. The words hit Emily like a train. She stumbled backward, eyes wild. No, that can't be right. Why would she leave me there? Why didn't she take me with her? Grace looked away. She didn't leave you. She died giving birth. I believe she was trying to run, hide, but she didn't make it. Emily covered her mouth. Silent sobs shook her body. Alex's mind raced. But why? What was she running from? Grace's gaze hardened. A man came days later, tall, cold eyes, black coat, said he was looking for a baby. I told him there was no baby. I lied. He handed me an envelope full of cash and told me to keep quiet. Alex's stomach dropped. Do you remember his name? No, but he looked like you. Alex went pale. My father, he whispered. Richard Morgan. Emily stared at him. He knew I existed. Alex nodded slowly, and he made sure no one else ever would. They sat in silence again. Only the sound of a wall clock ticking filled the room. Tick, tick, tick. Then Alex stood up. His voice was low and sharp. Emily, I don't think this was an accident. I think my mother was silenced. Grace grabbed his arm. You have to be careful, Alex. Your father is powerful, ruthless. If he buried this secret once, he'll do it again. Alex's voice broke. I let myself believe he was just cold, distant. But this? He turned to Emily, kneeling in front of her. I swear to you, I'll find out the truth. You deserve to know. And if he had anything to do with what happened to our mother, he'll pay. Emily met his eyes. Then I'm going with you. No, it's dangerous. I don't care. I've been running my whole life without even knowing it. I want answers. I want to know who I really am. Alex hesitated, then nodded. And just like that, they were no longer strangers. They were family. And the past was no longer a mystery to fear. It was a war to fight. As they left Grace's apartment, the street outside felt colder, heavier, almost as if the city itself was holding its breath. The next stop would be the Morgan estate, where the man who might have orchestrated a mother's death sat sipping wine in silence, never imagining that the truth was now walking toward him, with a birthmark and a name. The Morgan estate loomed in the foggy distance, an architectural monument to wealth and control. Its gates were tall, black iron twisted into cold elegance. The front lawn was pristine, too perfect, like it had something to hide. Emily Carter sat quietly in the passenger seat, eyes fixed on the mansion ahead. Every light in the estate was on, bathing the house in a surreal glow, as if it knew they were coming. Alexander Morgan tightened his grip on the steering wheel. Neither of them spoke, but they didn't need to. They both knew this moment was bigger than them. They were about to confront the man who had built a kingdom of silence and buried the truth beneath its marble floors. The butler opened the door without question. When your name was Morgan, you didn't knock. You entered. In the grand foyer, Richard Morgan stood at the top of the staircase sipping scotch. He didn't look surprised. If anything, he looked bored. Alexander, he said, voice cold. You brought a guest. Emily stepped forward. You know who I am. A flicker crossed Richard's face, then vanished. I know you're a child who's wandered too far from home, he said flatly. I'm Margaret's daughter, Emily said louder now. And you're the one who tried to erase me. Richard took a long sip. Alex stepped forward. We know everything, Dad. The birthmark, the hidden pregnancy, the lie. You had Mom followed. You paid Grace to keep quiet. And when she died, you buried her, along with the truth. Richard descended the stairs slowly, as if every word bored him. You think you've uncovered some grand conspiracy? He said. Let me ask you something, Alex. What have you actually proven? Alex pulled a small black notebook from his jacket. Mom's journal, he said. She wrote everything. About how you forced her to hide the pregnancy. About how the Morgan name couldn't be tainted by a daughter. Richard's jaw twitched. You don't know what it was like growing up in this family, he hissed. Everything I had came with expectations. I couldn't let her destroy it with sentiment. You let her die, Alex growled. You let her give birth in the streets. No, Richard suddenly shouted, glass crashing against the wall. She ran. She chose to run. I told her we'd find a way, but she was so dramatic, so afraid of legacy. She didn't understand what sacrifice meant. Neither did you, Emily said softly. Richard turned to her. You think I didn't want you? You think this was easy for me? You didn't want me because I wasn't a son. Silence. Only the sound of the fire crackling behind them. Then Alex whispered, You're a coward. Richard stepped back like he'd been struck. You'll never be like me, he snapped. Alex took Emily's hand. I hope not. Suddenly, flashing red and blue lights lit up the windows. The estate gates opened as 2 patrol cars pulled into the driveway. Richard froze. What the hell is this? Alex looked him dead in the eye. I gave everything to the police. The journal, the cash envelope Grace kept, the witness statement. They're not just here for you. They're here for justice. You would do this to your own father? You did it first, Alex said coldly. To our mother, to Emily. The front door opened with a bang. Chief Daniel Brooks entered with 2 officers. Richard Morgan, he said firmly, you're under investigation for obstruction of justice, abuse of power, and concealment of death. Don't touch me, Richard shouted as the officer stepped forward. You'll ruin the Morgan name, Chief Brooks replied calmly. You did that all by yourself. As the officers cuffed him, Richard glared at his son. You've destroyed everything. Alex didn't flinch. No, I've started over. Days passed. Richard Morgan's arrest sent shockwaves through the city. News outlets ran with headlines like, Heir exposes billionaire father's secrets and lost sister found in Brooklyn. The Morgan name, once feared, was now whispered with shame. But in a small apartment far from the noise, Emily stood by the window watching the sunrise. Alex entered with 2 cups of cocoa. You didn't sleep again? He asked gently. She shook her head. Too much on my mind. He sat beside her. You're safe now. She nodded. But Mom isn't here to see it. Alex reached into his coat and pulled out a box. Inside, Margaret's necklace. Cleaned, polished, and whole again. Emily gasped. You found it? It was in the estate vault, hidden, like everything else. He helped her clasp it around her neck. You're part of this family, he said, but more importantly, you're free from it. Tears welled in her eyes. I have a name now, she whispered. A past. A brother, Alex smiled, and a future. That afternoon, they visited Margaret's grave side by side. They placed fresh roses on the soil and stood in silence. Mom, Emily said softly, I'm here, and I'll make you proud. Alex added, we know the truth now, and we'll never let it be buried again. The wind blew gently through the cemetery. For the first time, Emily felt peace, not because the pain was gone, but because she finally knew where she came from and who she could become. Audience interaction questions. How did this story make you feel? Were there moments that gave you chills or made you emotional? What would you have done if you were Emily or Alex? If you enjoyed the story, comment the number 100 down below to let us know you watched it all the way through. And hey, where are you watching from? Drop your country in the comments. We'd love to know where our amazing viewers are from. If this story touched you, share it with someone you care about. Let's spread the message that truth always finds its way to the light.